The air buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses. My 30th birthday bash was in full swing, and I was about to drop the biggest news of my life. A baby was on the way. Instead, my partner, Alex, presented me with this sleek, ribbon-tied box. Inside, a stark note staring back at me. "I'm done. You're a dead end, and I deserve more." A wave of stunned silence rippled through the room, then a few nervous chuckles, then full-blown laughter as he just turned and walked out. Our closest friends looked at me, bewildered, waiting for an outburst. But I just smiled, a private, knowing smile, because Alex had no idea what storm he'd just unleashed. Fast forward just 2 months, and guess what? He was a disheveled wreck, shouting my name from the street below my window. Oh, how the tables turn. My relationship with Alex had spanned just over 3 years. He was charismatic and engaging, the kind of person who held your gaze, not constantly scanning for a better conversation. We hit it off quickly, didn't we? By our first anniversary, we'd found ourselves sharing a charming, if slightly overpriced apartment. The timing wasn't ideal financially, but hey, city rents are perpetually steep, so we just made it work. Our life together wasn't without its little snags, but honestly, it felt secure. Our aspirations aligned, a future home, some travel adventures, maybe even kids down the line. Alex, however, always placed a little more importance on appearances than I did. He obsessed over the model of car we drove, the trendy spots we dined at, and those meticulously curated photos for social media. I really should have recognized that as a warning sign. But isn't clarity always 20/20 in retrospect? About 4 months prior, I'd started feeling off. Morning sickness, but truly, it was an all-day ordeal, coupled with crushing fatigue. Ugh. I grabbed a pregnancy test almost as a formality, just to rule it out. We were careful, though perhaps not impeccably so, and then, 2 distinct pink lines. I can still recall sitting on the cool bathroom tiles, fixated on that small plastic indicator as if it held ancient secrets. It took me about a week to truly absorb the news before sharing it. My best friend, Clara, was the first to know, of course. She arrived at our weekly girls' night with a bottle of Merlot, and my refusal of a glass immediately tipped her off. She navigated the conversation beautifully, asking about my wishes, anticipating Alex's reaction, and covering practicalities like health coverage and maternity leave. Her questions really helped me bring order to the chaos in my mind. As for Alex, I chose to bide my time. My birthday was just 3 weeks away, and it felt like the perfect moment for a grand reveal. We'd already planned an intimate gathering at our place with our closest circle. I envisioned sharing our joy with everyone I loved in one special moment. Again, if only I'd known. What a fool I was, right? The weeks leading up to my birthday were a haze. I battled constant nausea, struggling to conceal it from Alex. He remained oblivious, which I put down to his demanding work schedule. He'd been arriving home later, engrossed in his phone, a subtle distance growing between us. I figured he was just stressed about something at work. My birthday fell on a Saturday. I spent the morning decorating and preparing, while Alex was dispatched to collect the cake, an errand that inexplicably consumed 3 hours of his day. Our guests began arriving around 6 in the evening. Clara and her husband, my friends Emily and Leo, my visiting cousin Maya, and a few others, including Sarah, a college acquaintance. The celebration was lively. Delicious food, flowing drinks, sparkling water masquerading as a gin and tonic for me, obviously, music, and infectious laughter. My plan was to make the big announcement after we'd had cake. I kept catching Clara's eye across the room. She'd offer these small, encouraging nods that set my stomach fluttering with eager anticipation. Around 9 o'clock, Alex tapped his glass, drawing everyone's attention. My heart leaped into my throat. Had he somehow discovered my secret? Was he about to overshadow my moment? He launched into an elaborate tribute, declaring how precious I was, how fortunate I felt to have him, all while maintaining intense eye contact. Then, he presented me with that small, exquisitely wrapped box, tied with a delicate silk ribbon. A hush fell over the room. Every eye was on me, some friends even raising their phones, ready to immortalize the occasion. For a fleeting second, I wondered if it was an engagement ring, and if a proposal meant I should still announce the baby. Then I opened the box. No ring, just a folded slip of paper. I unfolded it, puzzled, and read the words now etched into my memory. I'm leaving you. You're useless, and I deserve better. Your belongings will be packed by Monday. My gaze snapped to his. The warmth in his eyes had vanished, replaced by a cold, detached, almost amused expression. Then, loud enough for everyone to hear, he declared, we were finished, that it had been fun, but he'd simply evolved beyond me. And then he laughed. A genuine, unfeeling laugh. A few others in the room echoed him, clearly mistaking it for some elaborate prank we'd orchestrated. But then Alex simply turned and walked out the front door, without another word. The ensuing silence was deafening. I stood there, the note clutched in my hand, my pregnancy announcement dying in my throat, as our friends exchanged bewildered glances between me and the now empty doorway, waiting for a just kidding that never came. Clara was the first to react. She swiftly crossed the room, plucked the note from my grasp, read it, and muttered a furious curse about him being an absolute monster. Then, everyone erupted in a chorus of confusion, concern, and outrage on my behalf. And me? I simply smiled. Not because I wasn't utterly heartbroken. I was. Not because I wasn't profoundly humiliated. I absolutely was. But because in that precise instant, a critical realization hit me. Alex had no clue what was truly coming for him. He believed he held all the power. He imagined he'd choreographed this flawless exit, this public dismantling of our relationship where he emerged victorious. But he didn't know I was carrying his child. He didn't know I'd stumbled upon his secret credit card statements 2 weeks prior while searching for a stamp in his desk drawer. He didn't know I'd already seen the incriminating texts flashing across his smartwatch while he was in the shower. Seriously, 2-factor authentication would have saved him so much trouble. And most importantly, he didn't know that I'm not the type of woman who crumbles under pressure. I'm the kind who gets strategic. So I smiled. I thanked everyone for coming. I assured them I was fine, I wasn't, and that they shouldn't worry about me. They absolutely should. I even sliced the birthday cake Clara had brought and handed out portions, as if celebrating a new beginning rather than mourning an ending. Sarah departed almost immediately, citing a sudden illness. Interesting timing, wouldn't you say? Don't worry, her story isn't over. The others lingered, helping me tidy up, offering spare rooms, shoulders to cry on, and jokingly, alibis for murder. By midnight, everyone had left save for Clara, who adamantly insisted on crashing on my sofa despite my protests. Once we were truly alone, I finally shattered. The pregnancy, the profound betrayal, the public humiliation, it all crashed down upon me. Clara simply held me, allowing me to sob uncontrollably, refraining from empty platitudes or the irritating, everything happens for a reason rhetoric people often resort to when at a loss for words. When my tears finally subsided, sometime around 2 in the morning, I confided in Clara about the pregnancy. She wasn't even surprised, admitting she'd suspected from my recent behavior. Then I showed her the credit card statements, charges for hotels, lavish dinners, and expensive jewelry that had mysteriously bypassed my hands. I scrolled through the screenshots I'd taken of texts to S, complete with heart emojis and clandestine plans to meet while I was working late. We both knew exactly who S was, especially after Sarah's hasty departure from the party. We talked until dawn, weighing our options, meticulously crafting a plan. Clara broached the subject of telling Alex about the baby, but I was unyielding. He would discover it eventually, but on my terms, when I was ready, not a moment sooner. As for his affair with Sarah and his financial deceit, I wasn't going to stoop to petty revenge, but I would ensure the full truth came to light. Clara regarded me with a blend of concern and admiration as I articulated my strategy. She remarked that I could be quite formidable when that determined glint appeared in my eye. I just laughed, a genuine, unburdened laugh, the first since opening that dreadful box. That night, lying alone in bed for the first time in years, one hand resting on my still flat stomach, I made 2 solemn vows. One to my unborn child, that I would provide a stable, loving home no matter what, and one to myself, that I would emerge from this stronger than ever before. Alex believed he was writing the final chapter of our story with that cruel note. But if my binge watching of true crime podcasts has taught me anything, it's that the most satisfying retribution demands patience, meticulous planning, and a clear head, all of which I now possessed in spades. The next morning, I awoke to the comforting aromas of fresh coffee and sizzling pancakes. Clara, bless her heart, was still there, effortlessly acting as if nothing extraordinary had happened while subtly checking on me every 5 minutes. She kept pressing me to eat, her concern for the baby palpable. I managed a few bites before the familiar wave of nausea hit. Morning sickness, truly a cruel joke. Alex did not return that Sunday, a fact that brought both relief and a strange, lingering torment. I spent most of the day cycling between numbness, simmering fury, and a peculiar, detached impulse to plan. I created lists. So many lists. Financial matters that demanded immediate attention. Medical appointments to schedule. Difficult conversations to have. It felt as though my brain had activated a survival mode, fixating on practicalities to stave off the emotional tempest raging within me. Clara helped me pack a select portion of Alex's belongings. Not everything, just enough to unequivocally signal that I had no intention of his return. Throughout this, my phone constantly vibrated with messages from our friends. Most conveyed support, confusion, and concern for my well-being. A few were from mutual acquaintances who seemed more interested in dissecting the drama than offering genuine comfort. And conspicuously absent from the chorus of worried texts? Sarah. Remember her from the party? The one who suddenly felt unwell and made a swift departure? Yes, that's Sarah. Monday morning dawned, bringing with it a harsh dose of reality. I called in sick to work, something utterly uncharacteristic for me. I also scheduled an appointment with my doctor to confirm the pregnancy and discuss future steps. Around midday, while immersed in researching tenant rights, given that both our names were on the apartment lease, a text from Alex pinged my phone. I'll be there at 7 to collect my things. Make sure you're not around. The sheer audacity, right? I stared at that message for a full 5 minutes before typing a simple, unadorned no. Just that. No elaborate explanation. No alternative suggestions. Just a firm, unwavering boundary. He immediately called, and I immediately declined. Then I called Clara, who swiftly mobilized our friends. By 6:30, my apartment was bustling with a protective phalanx of loved ones. Emily, Leo, Maya, who had graciously extended her visit, and a couple of others. Alex arrived precisely at 7, and the look on his face when he encountered our impromptu welcoming committee was truly priceless. He attempted to project an air of tough indifference, demanding to know what was happening, but Emily, who stands at an imposing 6'4" and possesses a physique reminiscent of a brick wall, simply handed him a single suitcase containing a few clothes and essential items. Emily informed him, with unwavering resolve, that the remainder of his possessions would be accessible once he arranged a suitable time, and demonstrated a modicum of human decency. For the present, this was all he would receive. Alex tried to catch my eye, where I sat deliberately composed on the sofa. He began to sputter about the absurdity of the situation, insisting that he just needed to gather his belongings. I finally addressed him directly, telling him he should consider himself fortunate that I hadn't yet changed the locks, and that we could discuss the rest of his possessions once I'd had sufficient time to process his delightful birthday surprise. He began to argue, but something in my unwavering gaze must have deterred him. He seized the suitcase and departed, though not before muttering something about my perpetual need for an audience. Rich coming from the man who publicly discarded me in front of all our friends. Wouldn't you agree? After his departure, I wept again. Not for him, but for the future I had envisioned for us. For the plans that now required a complete rewrite. For the child who deserved a father far better than one capable of such cruelty. The following morning, I contacted a locksmith and had the apartment locks replaced. Smart move, right? Now, regarding Sarah. My suspicions had been aroused the moment she fled the party, but I needed concrete confirmation. It arrived from an unexpected source. Leo texted me Tuesday evening to inform me that Alex and Sarah had been seeing each other. He and Emily had spotted them together 2 months prior, but couldn't be certain it wasn't an innocent encounter. He apologized for not informing me sooner. It felt like a simultaneous gut punch and a profound vindication. I had known Alex was being unfaithful. I just hadn't known with whom. Discovering it was Sarah, someone who had graced my home, shared my meals, accepted my friendship. That was a betrayal of a particularly venomous kind. Instead of confronting either of them, I chose to observe, to gather intelligence. Perhaps I've indulged in too many true crime podcasts, but patience is undeniably paramount in these scenarios. Over the ensuing week, I channeled my energy into practicalities. My pregnancy was officially confirmed, 10 weeks along. I consulted a lawyer regarding the apartment lease and the division of assets. Thankfully, we weren't married, sparing me the additional drama of a divorce. I froze our joint credit card and established a new bank account solely in my name. Essential safeguards. What I did not do was disclose the pregnancy to anyone beyond Clara. Not yet. This wasn't denial. It was strategy. I needed to meticulously arrange my affairs first. 2 weeks after the birthday debacle, Alex texted again, requesting a meeting to discuss things and collect more of his possessions. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near our apartment. A public venue. Daytime. On my terms. He looked utterly terrible, a sight that, I admit, gave me a small, uncharitable pang of satisfaction. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled shirt. He immediately launched into what I can only describe as a half-hearted justification. He'd been unhappy for a while, felt trapped, and believed a clean break would be simpler for everyone involved. I allowed him to ramble for a while before I simply asked if Sarah was bringing him happiness. The look on his face? Priceless. Pure deer-in-headlights shock. He stumbled through denials so transparent I almost chuckled. I cut him off and informed him that I was aware of Sarah, of the hotel charges on his secret credit card, of the jewelry he'd purchased for her with money we supposedly needed for rent. I asked him simply to be honest for once. He deflated like a punctured balloon. He attempted the familiar, "It's not what you think" line. But I interrupted him again. I told him what truly mattered now was that he could collect the remainder of his belongings that coming Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. Aaron would be present to supervise. And after that, I expected no further contact from him unless it was mediated by my lawyer. His voice actually squeaked when he repeated the word, lawyer. He insisted we didn't need legal intervention, that we could resolve matters ourselves. I remained composed, even as my heart hammered in my chest. I explained that we were beyond that point, that he had made his intentions unequivocally clear at my birthday party, and I was merely honoring his choice. As I rose to depart, he grasped my wrist, not forcefully, but with a desperate urgency. He questioned me about the apartment, specifically how I intended to afford it alone, asserting that my income barely covered half the rent. And in that moment, everything clicked into place. The true motivation behind his concern, behind this meeting. It wasn't about seeking closure or retrieving his possessions. It was entirely about money. You see, what Alex either didn't know or conveniently forgot was that I had been contributing more than half the rent for the past year. His income had been steadily dwindling, his professional situation far more precarious than he'd ever admitted. He had been living beyond his means, utilizing my stable income as a safety net while meticulously cultivating the image of the primary provider for our friends. And, apparently, for Sarah. I offered him a sweet smile and informed him that I would manage perfectly well, adding that, unlike some individuals, I actually prioritized saving money instead of squandering it on hotel rooms and expensive trinkets. The color visibly drained from his face. He knew that I knew everything. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Not because I had triumphed in some petty relationship battle, but because I finally saw Alex with unwavering clarity for who he truly was. A man who valued superficial appearances over genuine substance, who lied to inflate his own perceived success, and who abandoned me the moment I no longer served his self-serving narrative. Saturday arrived, and as agreed, Aaron oversaw Alex's collection of additional belongings. I deliberately made myself scarce, opting to spend the day at a prenatal yoga class. I highly recommend it, by the way, for anyone navigating the stresses of pregnancy. When I returned, the apartment felt emptier, yet paradoxically, more profoundly mine. I began to rearrange the furniture that evening, symbolically reclaiming the space. Over the subsequent weeks, I settled into a new rhythm. Work, doctor's appointments, prenatal vitamins, meticulous budgeting. I wasn't merely surviving, I was actively constructing a future that, while undeniably different, was not necessarily worse than what I had envisioned before. As for Alex and Sarah, their romance, it appeared, was not exactly flourishing. Through the intricate grapevine, specifically through Leo, who heard from his cousin who worked at the restaurant where they frequently engaged in public altercations, I learned that Sarah was growing increasingly dissatisfied with her prize. Apparently, Alex had painted a far more financially stable picture of himself than reality afforded. Big surprise, right? The first tangible crack in their facade appeared approximately a month after my coffee shop confrontation with Alex. I was at the grocery store, carefully scrutinizing prices on prenatal vitamins, when I literally collided carts with Sarah. Again. What were the odds? This encounter, however, was different. She wasn't awkward or defensive. She actually seemed relieved to see me. She immediately inquired about my well-being, about the progress of my pregnancy, all while exhibiting what appeared to be genuine interest. Then she uttered something that completely caught me off guard. She apologized. Not a rushed, uncomfortable, sorry not sorry kind of apology, but a sincere, thoughtful acknowledgement of the pain she had inflicted. She explained that Alex had sold her the identical narrative he'd apparently fed multiple women, that we were essentially over, merely going through the motions, that I was an impediment to his true potential. She had subsequently discovered he'd been seeing another woman, even while dating her. The irony was not lost on either of us. We ended up getting coffee, tea for me, of course, and had this surreal conversation about the man we both now clearly recognized for who he was. Not a monster. Simply a profoundly insecure individual who craved constant validation and was perfectly willing to lie to attain it. As we were bidding farewell, Sarah casually mentioned that Alex had been dismissed from his job 2 weeks prior. She thought I should be aware, as it might impact child support. I thanked her for the information and made my way home, processing this new development. I wasn't pleased about Alex's job loss. It complicated matters, but I appreciated knowing. That evening, as I was meticulously folding tiny onesies and immersing myself in my favorite podcast, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole. Always check the peephole, folks. And saw Alex standing there. Sober this time, but looking visibly haggard. I opened the door, but made no move to invite him inside. He immediately began talking, asking if I had heard about his job, insisting it wasn't his fault, that he was being unfairly targeted. Then he inquired if I had seen Sarah recently, his tone laced with suspicion. I informed him, yes, we had run into each other at Target. His face performed this peculiar contortion, attempting to appear casual but merely looking constipated instead. He asked what we had discussed, and I simply stated, you, mostly. He clearly did not appreciate that answer, LOL. Then he began to grow agitated, asserting that we were probably conspiring against him, that everyone was abandoning him when he was just striving to do his best in a difficult situation. I calmly reminded him that he had engineered this very situation through his own choices, and that playing the victim would not work with me. That's when he broke down. Not a dramatic, cinematic display of tears, but a quiet, almost defeated crumpling. He lamented that his life was unraveling. No job, no girlfriend, an apartment he could barely afford, and an impending baby for which he felt utterly unprepared. For a fleeting moment, I felt that old, familiar urge to console him, to somehow mend things. But then the frigid words of that birthday note echoed in my mind. You're useless. I deserve better. Instead of comfort, I offered clarity. I told him he had 2 distinct paths forward. Continue his self-pity party and risk losing everything, or step up, embrace responsibility, and painstakingly rebuild. For the first time since this entire mess had begun, Alex truly listened. No interruptions, no excuses, just listening. When I finished, he nodded slowly and asked if we could continue our conversation inside. I hesitated, then agreed, but purposefully left the door ajar. Never fully enclose yourself with someone who is emotionally volatile. We sat at my kitchen table, and for the first time, he asked thoughtful, genuine questions about the baby. Not superficial inquiries, but real questions concerning health, development, and plans for the delivery. As we spoke, a significant realization dawned on me. I no longer harbored any romantic feelings for Alex, but I did genuinely want him to be okay. Not for his sake, but for the sake of our child. Before he left, he promised to review the child support agreement and secure a new job as quickly as possible. He also, surprisingly, thanked me for not hating him when I had every conceivable right to. I told him that hate consumes too much energy, and I was reserving my energy for matters of far greater importance now. The following weeks ushered in subtle shifts. Alex secured a new job, albeit with a lower salary, but offering more stability. He signed the child support agreement without any contention. He even enrolled in a parenting class at the community center. As my due date steadily approaches, things feel not perfect, but functional. Alex and I have established a cautious co-parenting relationship, built upon clear boundaries and mutual expectations. He attends doctor's appointments when invited. He even assisted in assembling the crib when I finally conceded defeat to those baffling IKEA instructions. Last week, at 7 months pregnant, I received a package from him. Inside was a journal, not extravagant, just simple and practical, accompanied by a note that read, "For your thoughts, your plans, and all the true crime podcast notes you wish to write. You are never useless. I was simply too self-absorbed to recognize your true worth." I did not respond. Some gestures don't require an explicit acknowledgement. But I did begin using the journal, primarily to document this journey so that one day I can share with our child the intricate, messy, yet profoundly human story of their arrival. Little Zoe made her grand entrance 6 weeks ago, weighing in at 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and her father's chin. The only feature of his I'm not mad about her inheriting, to be honest. Labor was, well, let's just say all those YouTube birth vlogs I binged did not prepare me for the reality. 32 hours, people. 32 hours. The funny thing is, during those endless hours of contractions, I kept thinking about how much I'd changed since that birthday party from hell. 8 months ago, I was a woman standing in shock with a breakup note in her hand. Now I was bringing a whole human into the world. Life comes at you fast, doesn't it? Alex was actually at the hospital for the birth, which surprised pretty much everyone, including me. He showed up with this massive teddy bear that literally wouldn't fit through the door of my hospital room. Seriously. Where did he think we were going to put that thing in my one-bedroom apartment? But he stayed, through the waiting, through my not-so-ladylike screaming, through it all. Clara was my rock, though. When things got intense and I was convinced I couldn't do it anymore, she was right there, reminding me that I was already doing it. Alex mostly hovered awkwardly in the corner, scrolling through his phone and occasionally asking if I needed anything. Which, at least he was trying. When Zoe finally arrived and they placed her on my chest, I had this moment of pure clarity. Everything we go through, all the heartbreak, betrayal, uncertainty, it all led to her, and I wouldn't change a single step of the journey. Alex cried when he held her, not movie star tears, but this awkward, trying not to but can't help it kind of crying that made his nose run and his face blotchy. It was the most genuine emotion I'd seen from him in our entire relationship. The first few weeks at home were a blur of diaper changes, feeding struggles, and sleep deprivation unlike anything I've ever experienced. My mom came to stay for 2 weeks, which was both a blessing and a challenge. She kept reorganizing my kitchen cabinets because apparently my system makes no sense. But seriously, who puts colanders with the pots instead of with the strainers? That's just chaotic. Alex has been surprisingly present. Not in a live-in-father way, but he comes by 3 times a week for scheduled visits. Sometimes he brings useful things like diapers or takeout. Other times he brings ridiculous baby clothes that are completely impractical, but admittedly cute. Last week, it was a tiny leather jacket. For a 6-week-old. I didn't have the heart to tell him she'll outgrow it before the weather's even cool enough to wear it. Our co-parenting relationship is still evolving. We have moments of tension, especially when he shows up late or cancels last minute because of work stuff. But we also have moments where it feels almost normal. Like when he noticed I was struggling with a clogged milk duct and actually researched remedies, then showed up with cabbage leaves and a heating pad. If you know, you know. Financially, things have settled into a workable routine. Alex pays his child support on time, so far. And I've been able to work from home part-time doing social media management. Not getting rich, but paying the bills. My landlord actually let me renew the lease in just my name without any drama, which felt like a small victory. The apartment feels completely different now. Alex's stuff is gone, replaced by baby gear that somehow takes up twice the space. I repainted the living room this soft sage green that makes me happy every time I see it. It's amazing how much your surroundings affect your mood, you know? Sarah and I still run into each other occasionally. Our city isn't that big. It's less awkward now. More like running into a distant acquaintance than someone who blew up your life. Last time she was with some bearded guy who kept calling her babe every 3 seconds. She seemed happy, if a little forced about it. I genuinely hope she is. As for Alex, he's still struggling in some ways. His new job isn't going great, according to Clara, who heard from Aaron, who plays basketball with Alex's coworker. Gotta love small city gossip networks. He moved into this depressing studio apartment that he's constantly complaining about. Sometimes when he comes to see Zoe, I catch him looking around my place with this expression that's hard to read. Nostalgia mixed with regret, maybe? The weirdest development has been Alex's apparent personal growth journey. He mentioned he's been seeing a therapist, which, wow. This is the guy who once told me therapy was just paying someone to listen to you whine. He's been reading parenting books and even joined some dad group on Facebook. Sometimes I wonder if aliens abducted the real Alex and left this pod person in his place. Anyway, my own life has taken some unexpected turns too. Remember how I mentioned working part-time from home? That actually came through a connection from Leo, who recommended me to his sister's company. The work is interesting, the people are nice, and most importantly, I can do it while Zoe naps. When she actually decides napping is on her agenda, that is. And then there's Eli. Yes, there's an Eli now. He's the delivery guy who kept bringing my grocery orders during those first chaotic weeks postpartum. At first, I barely registered him beyond, "Thank you, and please put the bags by the door," because hello, new mom zombie mode. But he started adding little notes to my deliveries, recommending items other parents had found helpful, or sometimes just a dad joke that would make me snort laugh. One day when I was particularly frazzled, hadn't showered in 3 days, pretty sure there was spit up in my hair, he dropped off my order and asked if I wanted him to help carry the cases of water to my kitchen. I hesitated. Strange man in my apartment and all that, but something about him felt safe. As he helped put away the groceries, we started talking. Turns out he's finishing his degree in environmental science, delivering groceries to pay the bills. He has a younger sister with 2 kids that he helps with regularly, which explains why he didn't run screaming from my disaster zone of an apartment. We exchanged numbers in case there were any issues with future deliveries. We both knew that was BS, but it was a comfortable fiction. We've been texting and he's come by for coffee a few times. It's nothing serious. I'm in no rush to dive into another relationship, but it's nice to talk to an adult who doesn't want to discuss diaper brands or sleep training methods. Last week when Alex came for his visit, Eli was just leaving. The look on Alex's face was complicated. Later, he casually asked who that guy was. I kept it vague, partly because there's not much to tell yet, and partly because it's not really his business. He made a few comments about moving on fast before seeming to catch himself and backing off. Clara thinks I should go for it with Eli, but I'm taking it day by day. After everything that's happened, I've learned that rushing into things never ends well. Besides, Zoe is my priority right now. Dating as a single mom is a whole different ballgame, and I'm still learning the rules. Speaking of Clara, she's been my constant through all of this. When I'm overwhelmed and convinced I'm failing at motherhood, she brings over iced coffee. My first love, finally back in my life now that breastfeeding is going better, and reminds me that all new parents feel this way. She takes Zoe for a few hours sometimes so I can shower, nap, or just stare at a wall in blessed silence. Yesterday was actually my birthday, 1 year since the box that changed everything. Instead of dwelling on that memory, I had a small gathering at my place. Clara and her husband, Aaron and Sergio, my cousin Maya, and a few other close friends. Alex stopped by briefly to drop off a gift, a surprisingly thoughtful bracelet with Zoe's birthstone, but didn't stay. As I looked around at my little apartment filled with people who truly care about me, at my daughter sleeping peacefully in her bassinet, at the life I've built from the ashes of what I thought I wanted, I felt something I hadn't expected. Gratitude. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Eli will become something meaningful. Or maybe he'll just be a brief, kind chapter in this story. Maybe Alex will continue growing into a decent co-parent. Or maybe he'll revert to old patterns. Maybe I'll stay in this apartment forever. Or maybe I'll eventually find a house with a yard for Zoe to play in. What I do know is that I'm not the same woman who stood holding that note on her birthday last year. That woman was shattered but determined. This woman is rebuilt, stronger at the broken places. So I guess if there's any moral to this long, messy story, it's that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you can lead to the best version of yourself. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually. P.S. If you're wondering what happened to that giant teddy bear Alex brought to the hospital, it's currently serving as a barricade to keep Zoe from rolling off my bed when I need to put her down for 2 seconds to pee. So, I guess it found its purpose after all. For those asking what happened to the infamous breakup note, I kept it. It's in a memory box in Zoe's closet, along with her hospital bracelet, first lock of hair, and the positive pregnancy test. Someday, when she's old enough, we'll tell her the whole story. Not to burden her, but because it's part of her history too.